Friday, the 9th of September, the market is just opening and a very interesting pattern as we are seeing the lower highs and the higher lows, but the higher lows have been really non-stop. This one here might make this one one that's not a higher low. However, very big uptrend. And the 42 level, which was hit here, broken above but not held here, broken above and not held here. And every time resistance is found, that's okay as long as you make a higher low. So this time it made a higher low at 37 compared to 32. Then in here we made a higher low at 39 compared to 37. And then here we made a higher low at 40 and change compared to 39. So if we struggle in here a bit, maybe come to 42 and change, we can still very easily go to 41.10 as the low, and you're still fine. But once you break this significant level, and that's when fireworks can sometimes come into play, because that shows that the selling that occurred way back in May is that of a failure. All right, that'll be it for the current chart. So I want to move into a couple theoretical or fake charts is another way of putting them, a historical one. And even tomorrow we'll be looking at technical analysis just by using the sheer numbers itself. And you could be waking up one morning and seeing how gold has had a massive gain of over 100. And maybe it might have a $200 or $300 day when silver has a $20 day. And maybe silver never will have a $20 day, or it might have to get up to 200 to first have one. That's tough to say. However, what would a day look like if we did have a $20 day? Would it be very similar to the Swiss franc, where we've seen major losses in the Swiss franc and then just do nothing? Because I was thinking, whenever you have moves like this, I was almost going to write a book state, you know what, whenever this happens, it's always going to be wild and volatile. Whenever you go from a point A to a point B, and you explode. But that hasn't happened within the Swiss franc. I'm not going to show that chart, but basically what happened there was like boom, and then it just does this. No, that's not very common. And a lot of that probably was banker intervention. But anything you see whenever the wild volatility happens is always banker intervention. Flash crash, the crash of 1987, the big run up to the NASDAQ top. It's all been that way to begin with anyway. Therefore, if this were to occur, it's going to be through banker intervention. And maybe I might state myself and say, I gotta think that this line's going to meet up here, and that means we're going to at least whatever it happens to be, 84, and well, maybe there's a better support line, and this is where a top might be. Actually, this is an area where it should top if and when it gets there, and it really is a when. But the key would be your emotions. What would investors in silver be thinking? And if you had short positions, especially without a stop, you'd be getting crushed. And a lot of emotions would be running rampant when events like this take place. And they're not always going to be to the upside. After all, we can have days where it just gets hammered. This might be a situation where we were trading in the $90 range, 89, 91, and next thing you know, boom, very quickly it's down to 82. That's a loss of 10% in about a couple hours, 3 hours, really? Now, is that possible? Well, we've seen a lot of stuff even more wild than this. I'd have to say most certainly. And then you get above this level, back into the range, and plump. Now, what's interesting is I can actually look back and on the somewhat of a short-term time frame and see collapses happen. At least back in May, when we had the big sell-off, this is what we looked at. A situation where you go from 40 down to 42. So I was mentioning about like what was it, 10% in that short term? No, this is 20%. Now they didn't stop any trading when this occurred, and I have no idea whatsoever what the level is before they stopped trading either on an up or a downtick. Back in 1979, there were days where the market went up 40, 50% in a day. And we've had one day recently in 2008 where it was down 30%. Neither of those days I have intraday levels, but I do have this one from May the 4th on the hourly time frame. And it's interesting because once it broke down, it continued to trend its way lower. Because even here, we're at 38. This level didn't hold for too long. In fact, I was loving this level as a buy level. But plump, it kept going lower. That's what happens when emotions really start to run rampant. And a lot of these moves seem to be taking place because the short term for silver, if you're watching any of the 1 and 5 minute charts in the last few months, you're so used to seeing silver spike a percent in 3 minutes, 20 cents in 2 seconds, 50 cents in a second sometimes, or 2 seconds. They're very common within the movements, and a lot of the computer trading and the derivative markets itself really, if anything, creates a larger volatility. If the market traded in a normal fashion without any margins, anything really speculative, other than you're trying to do what you're supposed to do, if you want to buy it, you actually buy what you're looking for. In this case is silver. And then the markets move up and down naturally. And in that situation, you wouldn't have these volatile situations where you lose 20% over 25 day over 4 days, 23 hours a day. Yeah, 20% in 4 days. That doesn't happen in normal markets. We are not in anywhere at a level to say we're anything close to normal markets. So the expected thing is someday these events to take place. Whether it's one of these up days or the down one, the scary one. Well, your emotions are usually pretty tough when it's in the downtrend. Alrighty, I think what's important to note is that when you see these take place, that usually means bigger movements. So if you're in this for the protection for safety against fiat currencies, there's not much more I can say, but for everything to come into play to the levels and the reasons why you want the silver, these things have to play out. It really isn't avoided, so there's nothing much more I really can say. And that's all I got for today, and take care.